For those of you who know me, you probably already know that QE2 is my favourite ship, and although the ship retired in 2008, I, like so many other people, have such fond memories of this remarkable ocean liner. But people often ask why QE2? What made her so special? So today I thought I'd share with you 5 reasons why the QE2 is my favourite ship. Number 5, the design of the ship was so unique. QE2 was such an interesting ship to go on board because she was designed for a very different time to what she was ultimately sailing in towards the end of her career. My first cruise on QE2 was in the 1990s, and by then she'd been in service for almost 30 years. The ship itself was designed to undertake transatlantic crossings in the summer and then go global cruising in the northern winter. And because of this, she was actually originally designed to be a 2-class ship. That meant that the interior of the ship was originally laid out to have both first class and tourist class. And because of this, there was some clever things that had been done to make sure that when she was operating as a 2-class ship, everybody stayed in the right areas of the vessel. This included the staircases on board QE2. She had a number of different stairways, A through to G, in fact, but not all of them went to all of the decks to make sure that when she was operating as a 2-class ship, everybody stayed in the right areas, and so you weren't supposed to be able to get into the first-class areas on board. Now, despite the fact that the ship operated as a 1-class ship for most of her career, these staircases were never really changed, and as such, you could easily get lost on board, but once you learnt your way around, it was quite fun because you could get to places much quicker than everyone else if you knew how to get there using the stairway system. Also, QE2 had different cabin types and designs. This is an era before standardization of cabin sizes and spaces, and so each stateroom, each suite, each cabin on board the ship was slightly different in different ways. This meant that if you were an ocean liner enthusiast like myself and you went on board the ship, it was always exciting to find out which cabin you were going to get and what its layout was going to be like. Number 4, the ship's seakeeping ability. It was just remarkable. QE2 was designed to be an ocean liner, and she really handled the oceans well. Now, she has been eclipsed by Queen Mary II in terms of stability. There's really no question about that. But for her day, she was a very stable ship and was very much able to travel through rough seas and weather that most of the cruise ships couldn't handle. I remember one particular voyage we were sailing from Melbourne through to Fremantle in the Southern Ocean near the Great Australian Bight, and we were sailing alongside the Aurora from P&O Cruises, an absolutely beautiful ship that is very, very well built and very well designed. But QE2 easily outhandled the rough weather that we encountered on that crossing. On the first day of the crossing of the Great Australian Bight, the Aurora was ahead of us, but QE2's very fast engines meant that she could catch up to Aurora and overtake her. The following day, Aurora was nowhere to be seen, and we were being pitched around in the weather. That evening, there was a captain's cocktail party. The captain was asked, "Where is Aurora?" And he said, "She's a few miles behind and struggling." And everyone laughed, of course, because QE2 could just plow through these oceans. QE2 actually arrived early at the next port of Fremantle, and we had to circle and wait for Aurora to come in first because she was due to dock before we were, which was quite fun for those of us on board the ship to know that we were on a true ocean liner. And don't worry, Aurora got through the Great Australian Bight just fine. She just couldn't do it as fast. Number 3, the library and bookshop on board the ship. This space on quarterdeck was an absolute treasure trove. It was run by Ocean Books, who were absolutely superb. They had a dedicated librarian and a bookshop manager who spent their day thinking about books, promoting books, learning about books, reading books, and talking to passengers about maritime books. The library itself had over 6,000 books that you could take out and read whilst you're on board the ship. However, the bookshop was my favourite of the 2 spaces because it was just full from floor to ceiling of maritime titles. You could get great books from John Maxtone Graham, from Bill Miller, from Captain Warwick on board QE2, and it was there that I decided as a young boy in the 1990s that I was going to become a maritime history author. When I was standing in the bookshop and saw one of the books with the author on board plaque underneath it. Now this meant that the author was sailing with the ship and you could get them to sign your book. And in fact, I had a number of books signed by authors on board QE2 before finally having my own book signing on board in 2008 when we launched QE2, a photographic journey on board the ship during her farewell season. I got to see my book there with the author on board plaque underneath it and gave lectures in the ship's theatre to a packed out crowd. It was just remarkable. But that bookshop and that library really did set me on a journey of maritime history and loving passenger ships. Number 2, the traditional beautiful teakwood boat deck and its observation area just under the bridge. QE2 had a wraparound boat deck with a small area at the front that you had to climb up some stairs to get to a viewing platform under the bridge. Now, QE2's boat deck compared to, say, Queen Mary 2's was much narrower because the ship was smaller, but it was a beautiful space for you to be able to go for a walk. There was sheltered areas underneath the 20 lifeboats that hung over top, allowing you to stand there, watch the world go by. There were steamer deck chairs on the ship's boat deck during her career. And there was ample deck space on the back of the ship to relax and just watch the world go by. But that area at the top of the ship, just beneath the bridge, was a really special space. You could climb up there and watch as the ship sailed in and out of ports. You got the full volume of those gigantic whistles that QE2 had. Blasting their A-toned note for everyone to hear. You got that beautiful perspective if you stood facing aft, where you could see the mast and then the funnel, that gigantic red and black funnel. And then of course, if you stood right in the middle during the ship's transits of the world's oceans, you could look out over that huge bow and feel the ship as she moved up and down in the water. It was just remarkable. Many ships today don't have these open promenades like QE2 did, and more passenger ships are doing away with the boat deck altogether, which I think is a terrible shame. But QE2's boat deck was definitely one of my favorite places on board the ship. Number one, the best thing about QE2 was the atmosphere thanks to the crew that were on board that ship. The QE2 was more than the sum of her parts. She wasn't just a passenger ship, she was a passenger ship with soul, if that makes sense. I don't quite know how to describe it, but the ship had a feeling, an ambience, an energy about her that had been built up over almost 40 years of cruising. QE2 had crew that started with the ship on her first voyage, that stayed with her until her last voyage. There were passengers who started with the ship on its first voyage and stayed with it till the very end. This meant that the ship had an ambience, an atmosphere, an environment on board that can't be replicated anywhere else. And I've never quite found that on any ship anywhere in the world since QE2. A few of them have something pretty close. Queen Mary 2 definitely is up there, but there was something about the atmosphere on board QE2 that is just very difficult to replicate. There was a passion about the ship. The people who worked on the ship were passionate for her. It wasn't just a job, it was a lifestyle. It was a passion to be there. The captains as well, very personable, spending time with passengers. You'd see them walking around the ship. Captain McNaught, Captain Rind, Commodore Warwick, Commodore Burton Hall, all of whom you would be able to talk to as passengers and enjoy some time reminiscing of the great ocean liners of days gone by. The crew were fun and engaged. The entertainment staff were happy to joke with passengers during the day and into the evenings, which you might not expect on a luxury ocean liner, but it was what made the ship so special. And then there was the dining experience on board. QE2 had 5 main restaurants, meaning that each of the dining rooms was slightly smaller than what you would find on modern day passenger ships. But the staff in the dining rooms were encouraged to personalize the service. Even in the Mauritania restaurant, which was the lowest passenger grade on board the ship, you could get amazing service with starters, sorbets, main courses, sorbets again, desserts, petit fours that were just a massive tray with heaps and heaps of chocolate to help yourself to afterwards. And then the maitre d' would come over and speak to you at your table and engage with you and make sure that you're having a wonderful time. I haven't been back to QE2 since she turned into a floating hotel. My last time on board the ship was in September of 2008 when she was still alive, full of the Cunard people that made her special. But if you've been on board and think I should go and check it out, let me know in the comments below, because I'm fascinated with the idea of going back to the ship, but just not sure, given my favorite thing was the atmosphere, whether or not it would be worth going back to see her again. Thanks so much for watching. If you do like this kind of content, please don't forget to give it a like and subscribe for further videos, because we're trying to get to 35,000 subs and we'd love to have you there. Thanks once again for watching, and until next time, I hope to see you on board.